Hey everyone, it's Sharon Jameson, the CEO and founder of the Jameson Group, and I hope you can come in and stay with me for a couple of minutes. Wanted to share something that I learned from a couple of my customers, my clients the other day. I'm going to also go on Facebook and Instagram Live. Let me see. So hopefully you can join me, and if you don't are not able to join me, if you can just put replay and let me know your thoughts about something that I want to share. Well, the other day I had a chance to talk with many of my clients, and many of them are high performing, successful women of color, just like many of you. And one of them told me that they were having trouble with their coach. Hey, Yvette, they were having trouble with their coach because they were not getting the results that I guess their coach expected. Hey, Jackie. And the coach told them that they were not getting successful because they were acting like a victim. So you know that didn't go over well with me. And what I find so often is that we go to coaches who don't really understand the context of racism and sexism, who don't really understand the impact of the intersection of racism and sexism. And then they want to try to convince people that some of the experiences that they're having are the lack of quote unquote success is because it's a mindset issue. Now, I want to be honest. Sometimes we do have some mind trash, right? We have some mind clutter. We all do. We all are human. We all have our own traumas and our stories. But there's another thing that happens when we don't acknowledge that the people that we hire to help understand the context in which we navigate in the world. It's something different when a person, a coach, says that you are being a victim when they are operating in total privilege. Privilege because of their skin, a privilege because of their sexuality, a privilege because of their gender. So I want to encourage women really to, especially women of color, if you have a coach who continues to tell you that it's in your mind, no, racism is in reality. Racism is in our educational system, in our political system, in our corporate America, is in the bedrooms, in the boardrooms, is in the pulpit. For someone to deny your experience because it's outside of their perspective, outside of their mastery, outside of their experience, belittles you and belittles the experience and the demons and the challenges that you have to function and navigate through as a person of color. So it's really important if you hear a coach, I don't care how popular they are as an influencer, if they cannot connect with your context and ask you questions about your context, maybe they're not the person who should be helping you. Because it's one, and I'm not saying it's intentional, but I am saying it's a competence issue. Because people who are going to work with people of color need to have a level of cultural competence. It needs to be a level of racial literacy if you're going to have and help and support and galvanize people of color. So I think that's really, really important. The first thing that we have to do, and it's going to be up to us as people of color to push back on these coaches and these trainers and mentors with our checkbooks. Because we cannot keep trying and begging people to support women of color and people of color and to understand our issues and to understand the water that we swim in. If people don't want to understand them, stop hiring them. Vote with your wallet. And I think that will help us because to not be minimized and marginalized by the people who we are paying and investing to help us. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to say, thanks so much for joining me, is to understand to white coaches, just because you took a class does not make you culturally competent, right? I don't care if you got a certificate in diversity, inclusion, and equity. It does not make you an authority on the experience of people of color, right? And we got to be careful because all that is an arrogance that because you took a class, you understand the waters that we swim in. Now, I'm grateful that you take classes, and I'm not speaking to all white people, all right? But I am speaking to coaches who have taken one class and now they want to deem themselves an authority, and because it's one thing to have information, but it's another thing to understand how it really impacts the clients that you want to serve. Because remember, you're being educated about racism. We are enduring racism. You are being informed. We are being intimidated by it. You are being promoted from it. We are being disenfranchised because of it. So we have to be really careful that to not overestimate your understanding because you took a class, not underestimate your cultural literacy or your cultural competence because somewhere you have a certificate, and that certificate gives you understanding about the complexities of the violence, the emotional violence that racism is on a person's soul. So I think it's important that we talk about that, because here's an analogy. Just like you go to a doctor, right? And we have to tell the doctor about our symptoms. But we would never go to a doctor who did not understand the body, the normal physiology, the normal anatomy of a body, to support you. A doctor should be able to know the difference between an eye and a nose, or a leg and an arm. Same with diversity. If you're going to call yourself aware of diversity, know the difference between discrimination and bias. Know the difference between white supremacy and white censoring. Know the difference between white fragility and oppression. Now, they all kind of go together, but you got to know the difference, just like a doctor has to know the difference between a small intestine and a pancreas. If not, we are going to people who don't understand what they're talking about. And just because they have the language, they don't have the understanding. And we got to understand that language and understanding are very different. So I want to encourage you, if you are a coach and you are not a person of color, to continue to understand that this racism and sexism is not, you don't graduate from understanding racism and sexism. What happens is it is a lifetime understanding. Just because it will take you a lifetime to unpack your privilege, and just like it takes us a lifetime, people of color, to unpack the impact of racism or colorism and classism. We don't undo that overnight. And just like it takes us time, people of color time, to unpack that and unravel that, and all the ways that it limits and marginalizes our identity. If it takes me 50 years, it's not going to take you 5 minutes. And it's not going to take you 5 classes and you get a certificate and you ordain yourself ally of the year or culturally competent. And I'm saying that out of love, because people are being injured. People are going to coaches who don't understand just the basic understanding of the complexity and the intersectionality of racism and sexism, and people are being wounded. It's one thing when you go to a doctor, but a doctor you should not leave the doctors worse off, re-wounded, re-injured, re-incapacitated. There has to be an understanding that if I am being paid to help you maneuver in this complex, complicated, corrupt, unethical, systemic, oppressive system that takes your rights away, I at least owe it to you, if I'm going to take you as a client, to educate myself. Just like a doctor owes it to us to do their training and their residency and their fellowship before they start cutting on us. Because some people are going to cripple people and injure people, not because they're mean, but because they are not knowledgeable. Remember, it doesn't matter if someone is incompetent, they still can kill you. So I think it's important, if you're not a person of color, and also if you are a person of color, continue to understand that we will have to continue to educate ourselves, and it will take spiritual stamina. And I think that's what's happening now. People are tired of talking about racism. People are tired of talking about sexism and homophobia, and people are saying, I want to check out. But as a person of color, we don't get to check out. We don't get to just take off our color and say, well, we have had it. We're tired. We don't really want to endure all the ways that we are minimized and subjugated. So it does take spiritual stamina to do this work. And if you're not going to provide the support, don't say that you are open and affirming or you are anti-racist. No, you're not. You are by information, but not implementation, not demonstration. Because at this point, who cares about declaration? We need demonstration, because people's lives are at stake, right? So, and then the third thing, I want to say this, and then I'll leave. I think it's important that if you are a person of color, it's important that you are aware and you understand the difference between being coachable and controllable. Yesterday, during my session with my clients, our sister group, they were saying, well, my coach said I was not coachable. Well, it's one thing to be coachable and open to information, but it's another thing to be controllable when somebody wants you to drink their toxic lemonade that's based on historical lies. See, that's different. We all have to be coachable and open to learn and open to grow and open to challenge our flaws and open to challenge the ways that we function in the world that are suboptimal, so we can enjoy our goals, enjoy our desires, follow our destiny. That's why I always believe education activation is elevation. That's important. But it's another thing for a coach to say that you're not being coachable, because since racism is not their reality, they think it's not your reality. And so I just want to challenge you, before you hire these coaches or the mentors, ask them to show you evidence in their commitment in their ongoing training around racism and sexism. And it's not just something that they write in their bylaws. That's a start. But I've been in corporate America for almost 35 years. A lot of companies talk about they're open and affirming, and they're not biased. And they are some of the racist organizations that hurt people and undermine people and make people feel as if they're not valued, as if they're not valuable, and that as if their contributions are not vital to the health of the organization. So if you're a person of color, we have to do our research. I'm not saying it's fair. And I'm not saying sometimes we don't act like a victim. Sometimes I act like a victim. I act like a victim to a Twinkie in a minute when I want to eat it, right? When I don't want to walk in my power. But it's one thing to understand that I am acting like a victim, but it's another thing to understand that you are victimized by a systemic 400 plus years of conditioning, of programming, colonization, indoctrination, all types of ways that we have been taught that we are less than, and we have been taught to not listen to our own intuition, what is our own inner witness. So listen to your inner witness. Feel in your body, because you know if you're being coachable or not. But don't let someone convince you that you're not being coachable, because you're not being controllable. And anybody who wants you to drink this Kool-Aid that says that we live in a culture, in a country where everybody can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a lie. We are a work in process. We ain't there yet. And so I want women, especially it was a sister circle, not to feel as if you are not making progress, that you're not coachable, because you have to deal with issues that maybe other coaches or other people in your mastermind don't have to deal with or know not of. And again, it's one thing to read about racism, is another thing to be reared and to have to navigate in racism in a way that makes holding on to your self-esteem a full-time job. It's another thing to be reared in a system that you have to remind yourself every day that you are worthy, that you are beautiful, that you are brilliant, that you are bold, that you have the same rights to in the same access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, even though you live in a culture that denies those very things. Yeah. So thanks so much for joining me. I just wanted to share that with you. Oh, I forgot to look at the the comments. I'm using StreamYard, so I can't use the comments. So think about who you're hiring. Make sure people are culturally competent. Make sure people are racially literate. Make sure that they ask you the right questions, but also make sure you vote with your dollar. And if anybody cannot honor that you have a unique perspective of the world, I think that we need to take a second look. And again, I'm not talking about our we all have some mind trash. We all have some things that we have endured. But let me tell you, racism is something that you cannot change. Racism, I'm not saying be a victim. You just have to know what it is and maneuver around it and soar above it or soar under it if you can. Protest whatever you can do to dismantle it in a way that helps you live with dignity and respect and self-love, but don't allow the coach, any coach, I don't care if they got 15 certificates and they got 100 diplomas on the wall. If they're not a person of color, and I'm not talking about a person who can pass, I mean a person of color who are fighting microaggressions every day, who people who have to worry about their sons and their daughters and they're always feel as if they are at risk of loss because of who they are, their sex or gender, or who they love. That's a very different thing. Yeah. So if you have any comments, leave the comments. I'll come back and answer your comments because I can't really see your comments. But listen, some people are incompetent on accident, but to me it's intentional because you know if you're going to hire people of color, that is your job, is your obligation to make sure that you can help the people that you serve. If not, if you can't help, don't hurt, because we already have to deal with enough just navigating as people of color in an unjust, unfair, inequitable world. Yeah. I hope that helps. Thanks so much for joining me. Leave a comment and I'll come back and answer your comments. And also just want to encourage you. I'm going to be doing this whole series next week, a free series on sister wounds. Sister wounds, because there's a lot of wounding that's happening, not only with women of color, but there's a lot of wounding that happens with Black and white women. And let's have a real honest conversation about it, because we cannot correct what we won't confront. And it's time to confront it in a way that allows everyone to grow, to blossom, and to heal. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Blessings, and let's dare to soar higher. Bye-bye. And let me end this. There we go.